The Guru's Lineage.
Atreyamulam Karapatra Bhikshu Fakira Yogit Jayalakshmi Mata Sri Sachchidananda Padavasanam Vande Gurutam Sa Paramparam Tam.
I offer my prostrations to the lineage of the Gurus, beginning with Lord Dattatreya, followed by Karapatra Swami, Fakir Yogi, Sri Jayalakshmi Mata, and finally my Sadguru Sri Ganapathy Sachchidananda Swamiji. Satyanarayana was 10 years old. One day he and his friends skipped school and kept walking till they reached the village of Jangalapalli. There was a pond in that village. The kids went to swim in it. One of the kids pushed Satyanarayana into the deeper end and ran away. When he turned around to see if he was being chased, there was no sign of Satyanarayana. Satyanarayana had drowned in the pond. The children waited anxiously for nearly 15 minutes to see if he was going to come out. There was no sign of him. The friends got frightened. They were frightened to go tell the elders in the village because they had skipped classes to go swimming. They didn't have the courage to dive in and look for him. After half an hour, finally they had no option but to go and tell the elders of the village.
There's the sun into the well.
Has the sun fallen in the well? Hey, when did that happen? How did it happen?
The entire village ran to the pond to look for Satyanarayana. He was the son of their only priest, doctor and guru. By the time they arrived, Satyanarayana was swimming back to the steps of the pond with a grin on his face. The villagers laughed the matter off, but the Brahmin's son must be strong to sustain himself under water for so long. They went happily back to their work. Satyanarayana told his mother Jayalakshmi the news that night. She said,
"You were born in water. So what is so special in the fact that you have achieved mastery over the technique of Jala Stambhana?"
Satyanarayana asked his mother.
How can people take birth in water?
Jayalakshmi replied,
Common rules do not apply in all situations. In certain situations, special rules apply. I was going to tell you the story of your birth. I will begin today. So far, I've taught you a number of subjects. They are all related to the path of Raja Yoga. You've been working at the practical application of some of them, like practicing the technique of Jala Stambhana using the method of Brahma Randhra Samadhi. You should now know how you managed to learn these and also learn the tradition that supports it. You should know the lineage of your gurus. A sadhaka who does not know much about his guru will not succeed in achieving total siddhi. I am your first guru, and that is why it is my duty to tell you about my past and about myself. Please listen to what I have to say with full attention. Your grandfather, my father, he is a pure karma yogi. His philosophy in life is very simple. He considers that working to assist fellow human beings is like worshipping the Lord, and that only such people have a right to live in this world. He strongly believes in putting into action what he believes to be right. He practices philosophy at all three levels of mind, body and speech. This attitude of his made some people wrongly accuse him of being an atheist. In certain ways, he appeared to be a communist, judging by his actions. But neither is he an atheist nor a communist. At the same time, he didn't have a good understanding about God, and therefore one could not call him a bhakta. He is a pure karma yogi, and my mother is a loving housewife in its true sense. She believed in following the old traditions. You have seen our Sangama Kshetra and heard about the movement of the Rishi. I was about 15 years old when we moved to Mekadatu. Of all the different deities, I had a special liking for Ganapathy. I was never frightened to hear stories about the rishis, but on the other hand was secretly hoping to meet them. I developed a friendship with the sadhus who would come to have a sight of the rishi. I had the special knack of learning about the different techniques of sadhana practiced by those sadhus just by seeing them. As long as it did not interfere with my life in the household, I tried to put those techniques into practice. It wasn't difficult for me. There were a few sadhus whose methods of sadhana were difficult for me to find out. On their way back, some of the sadhus used to tell me if they had had the sight of the rishi. I would try to inquire about the rishi from them.
Who is this rishi? What should I do to have his darshan?
I would never get a satisfactory answer. The sort of replies I would receive were,
"You won't understand even if I try to tell you."
"Why are you in a hurry? You will have a darshan of Rishi."
My parents didn't like my becoming friendly with the sadhus. It did pose a few problems, but the Divine Mother's grace gave me ample opportunity to converse with them on the subjects that I wanted to discuss. Some sadhus spoke English and many spoke Hindi and Sanskrit. Soon I learnt all the three languages. I would roam about freely in the forest and developed a friendship with all the animals, both the cruel and the gentle. My family considered my association with the animals as being tomboyish. I used to stand near the streams and watch the vast sky and the beautiful landscape. I would lose track of time. I learned how to enjoy nature by becoming one with it in its varied manifestations. I felt myself to be one among the ripples in the river, the breezes in the forest, the rocks among the mountains, and the blades of grass on the ground. During those days, two sadhus arrived at the Sangama at about the same time. One was Fakir Datta, who was about 120 years old. He didn't tell me where he was from. The other was Ganapathy Swami from Kashi. I became friends with Fakir Datta. He conversed freely with everyone and used his special powers to assist the gypsies who needed help. Ganapathy Swami remained silent most of the time. Whatever little he spoke was spoken in Sanskrit. Swami never stayed at anybody's house. He spent his time at the temple of Lord Sangameshwara. Like all the sadhus who became friends with me, Fakir Datta also was very affectionate towards me. He showed a great amount of love and compassion. I had an inclination to learn some yogic powers. After I met Tata, this desire grew stronger. I kept following him, hoping that he would teach me a few of those. I learned how to put yantras on trees and fields to ward off evil spirits that would damage the crops. I wasn't satisfied with those. I wanted to achieve greater powers. Fakir Datta suggested one day that I meet Swami. I had thought all along that the two did not like each other. As soon as Tata mentioned to me about Ganapathy Swami, I went at once to the Sangameshwara temple to meet him. I offered my humble salutations. He said,
"Fakir has already told me about you. Come and see me whenever you can."
Then he became quiet. I soon realized that these two wanted to test me to find out if I was competent enough to be their disciple. I knew that these tests were not going to be easy. I had heard the experiences of the other sadhus. I prepared myself mentally to withstand the hardship of these tests. I started to visit them at least twice a day. One day when I was meditating near the Brahmakunda, I actually entered into the state of samadhi. I must have remained there for a few hours. When I came out of my samadhi, I felt like going to the temple to meet Swami. I had to pass a cave on the way to the temple. I saw something that looked like an ochre robe at the cave. It was actually Fakir Datta and Ganapathy Swami sitting in the cave facing each other. As soon as I saw them, I heard Swami say,
"She will be useful."
I offered my salutations to both of them. From the next day on, after that episode, Fakir Datta began to teach me the Astanga Yoga Vidya.
Mooladharam tatha swadishtanancha madipurajam anahatam vishuddhakyam आज्ञाचक्रं विदुर्बुधा आधारस्वरूपाणि कोणचक्राणि पार्वती त्रिकोणरूपिणी शक्तिः बिन्दुरूप शिवस्मृताः अविनाभावसम्बन्धः तस्मात् बिन्दुत्रिकोणयोः.
As I developed a close association with him, I started to pester him with the question,
When will I have the darshan of the Rishi? Please tell me.
He would simply reply,
It will happen one day.
As my sadhana progressed, I had the vision several times of the Sapta Rishis. I also saw some other Rishis who secretly visited Sangama. I saw Devas and Gandharvas roaming about in the sky, but I never managed to see the Rishi. The nearest I came to see the Rishi was seeing the glow emanating from him as he was traveling up in the sky. That did not satisfy me. A few days later, Swami made me sit with him in the cave near Brahmakunda and taught me all about the theory of the Shastras. But he did not teach me their practical application. When Tata and Swami were together for a while, they would act like friends, but at the end of their meeting, Tata would bow down to the feet of Swami. One day at the end of their meeting, I offered my salutations to them. As I was getting up after touching Swami's feet, Swami gently touched the top of my head with his staff. It gave me an electrifying experience, an experience that I cannot describe in words. I could visualize the entire Sri Vidya. I was greatly excited. After that, I engaged in internal meditation for several months without any interruption. I could do it at all the 3 levels of experience: when I was awake, when I was dreaming, and when I was in the deep sleep state. But there was a lot of internal conflict on one issue. There was a slight difference in the theory about the truth of the Atman that he had preached and the practical experience that I was undergoing. I expressed my problem to Swami. He simply answered by saying,
Is that so?
Even Tata did not help. He said,
Yeah.
One day I decided to settle this matter once and for all and went to the Brahmakundam. By the time I arrived at the cave near the Brahmakundam, I saw a glow of fire coming from inside. I wasn't frightened or put off by that. On the other hand, I felt extremely happy. I could vaguely see the form of a person sitting inside the cave. My eyes got adjusted to the brightness of the glow of the fire and could make out that it really was not the glow from fire. It was the glow emanating from a Maharshi who was sitting inside in a lotus position. In the middle of this glow, the soles of his feet appeared red hot. He was twice as tall as my father. When he was sitting inside the cave, the top of his head nearly touched the ceiling. Of course, it was not a big cave. He was of a very dark complexion and was wearing white clothes. His long beard was whiter than his clothes. He had a Rudraksha mala around his neck. It was almost hidden by his long beard. He wore a very thick sacred thread on his shoulder. A small upper garment was covering the top half of his body. It wasn't worn like a cloth over his chest, but was placed on his shoulder in the form of a sling meant to collect food offered during Bhiksha. I found it hard to look into his eyes directly as they were very bright. He had a very broad forehead and he wore vibhuti in 3 horizontal lines across it. His hair was matted and tied at the top of his head. He gave me a welcoming smile. I felt happy and excited. The brightness of the smile was dazzling like lightning falling on a lotus lake. I didn't need to ask who he was. I knew right away that he was the Adi Guru, Lord Dattatreya. Since he was sitting in a lotus position, it wasn't possible for me to touch his feet in salutation. I placed my forehead on the floor and then stood up. He signaled for me to sit in front of him. I felt no hesitation to do as I was told. I sat very close to him as though I had known him for a long time. I kept staring at him. Neither did I go into meditation, nor did I ask him any questions. He spoke after a while.
I have come to share with you the joys and sorrows of my life.
Please tell me.
I said.
During my travels around the world, every time I visit my father, my mother Anasuyamma always welcomes me with exactly the same smile, like yours. It is now Kali Yuga. It has reached its peak. I am trying to control myself, but I am finding it hard to tolerate the behavior of the people in this yuga. I have been able to do some good to the people by taking on different forms, but it is really not sufficient to meet the needs of the time. I have to take on a body and follow a plan of action to establish dharma permanently on this earth. This body has to be an avatara that would be easily approachable to all and would be around on a long term.
He paused for a while, and I was observing his eyes. Like the petals of a lotus, he closed his eyes very slowly. The movement of the lids when he closed his eyes was in such slow motion, it was slower than the movement of the moon. I didn't even think that I should make an effort to register what he had said so far. I was in a state of trance. The thought that went through my mind was,
If only my other two gurus were here, they could have had the darshan of Lord Dattatreya. I wonder what's keeping them.
When the main deity is here, why do you look for the Utsava Murtis?
He asked with his eyes still closed. For a moment I felt frightened, but soon ecstasy replaced the feeling of fear. I kept staring at his eyes and at his face. His eyebrows were shaped like the arch of a bow. When his eyelids started to open, it was like a swan gently shaking its wings.
Mother, I will take leave of you.
I could hear him saying, because of his height, he had to put his head out from the entrance of the cave and then straighten his body. At once, he started to float in the sky. His presence brought a special beauty to the sky. Looking down at me with a smile on his face, he gradually receded from me. As the distance increased, his complexion appeared very dark. The clothes he wore appeared to be a shiny red due to the glow emanating from him. In a short while, all I could make out was the outline of his form and his beard. The glow appeared like an ochre robe on him. I must have closed my eyes in excitement, and I really don't know when he disappeared from you. By the time I came to my senses, all the doubts that I had for so long were totally cleared. I remained at the Brahmakundam for a long time. Mother was angry that I was late in coming home. I tried to tell her that I had the vision of the Rishi. I tried to give her some details. She wasn't fully convinced. She didn't pay much attention to my narration of the day's events. It took nearly 4 days for me to come back to normal from the height of excitement and to recommence my sadhana. I did not have the darshan of my gurus until I restarted my sadhana. Finally, when I met them at the cave, they both spoke to me in Kannada and addressed me as Mata. They told me the work that they had come down here for was completed and they were going to leave. I expressed my gratitude to them. I asked them if I should remain celibate and spend my life helping those who were in need of spiritual training. I was reprimanded for my words and was told should always wait for the command to come from the Guru. I begged to be forgiven and meditated silently for a while. My Guru started to converse silently through their subtle bodies. I looked around to see if there was any reason for them to converse this way. I saw that my mother was hiding nearby and trying to listen in on our conversation. She was made to hear what she needed to know by the two of them speaking in Kannada, and the rest of the conversation was conducted silently.
I have not had a chance yet to find out what powers I have achieved and what I have not achieved yet.
I said,
You are experiencing this desire because there are still some sanskaras left in you.
Fakir Tata tried to explain.
Mother, when Lord Dattatreya himself is going to be born to you, why should you entertain any other concerns?
Swami asked me. I recollected what the Adi Guru had said to me and understood its meaning clearly now. I was surprised and I felt shy. That I felt shy made me feel ashamed of myself. It was like a blow of the whip for the sinful thought that had entered into my mind.
Mother, you need not do anything. The body will be functioning. You just remain a witness.
Swami advised me.
Yes,
Said Fakir Tata. I offered my salutations in silence and came home. I used to go every morning to the Sangameshwara temple to offer the Lord a garland I made with tummi flowers. 4 days after this episode, I felt like going to the temple again and offer the garland. I went there and sat in meditation. When I opened my eyes, I saw the Adiguru sitting in front of me. He was sitting in the same place where Karapatra Swami used to sit. I put the garland at his feet and offered my salutations. I at once had the feeling that something had entered into my body, and I forgot myself. Adiguru pressed the garland to his eyes and then placed it on the Shivalingam. He said,
Mother, the Brahmin who comes to your house before tomorrow morning will be your husband.
In those 4 days, my mind went through a deep analysis of my dharma and the dharmic duties of a true disciple. I said,
I obey your command.
The pleasant voice of the Adiguru reverberated again. I heard him say,
Mother, on account of Kali age, a blending of virtues and vices has occurred. These have become intricately entwined in the human beings. The humans of present day are involved in new difficulties that have not been elaborated completely in the ancient scriptures. As a result, they are unable to find solutions to their problems. I am looking for ideal individuals who can act and show people in dilemma that even in their confused state of mind, they still can think of me and contemplate upon me. Long ago, I had commanded Prajapati, the creator, to create women to increase progeny. It is not my intention that women should not pursue spiritual practices. If their spiritual exercises prove to be an obstacle to Deva Yajna, which is called the wheel of the universe, then it will not be fruitful. It is more difficult for a woman to maintain her righteous duty. I am searching for a woman who can demonstrate to the world the virtuous duties of an ideal woman. I am anxious about it. I am now entrusting that job to you. Shubhamastu. My blessings to you.
It was like the sound coming from a sacred conch shell. It was beautiful to listen to. I bent my head forward, folded my hands, and accepted his command gracefully. The Adiguru disappeared from view. For the first time in my life, I saw the truth of the statement made by Fakir Tata.
the Divine Mother knows how to convey her command when the time comes.
Your father came to our house under the most unusual circumstances, and our marriage took place.
ब्रह्मज्ञानं सत्यमनन्तं भवरूपम् पूर्णं चिद्गण पञ्चमुखं तत्शिवरूपम् दत्तात्रेयं दत्ता